Good morning, everybody. I want to call this meeting of the Structural Pest Control Board to order. Susan, would you please do the roll call?
Sure. Dave Smile,
Present.
Darren Van Steenwood,
Present.
Rhonda Brand,
Present.
Naresh Duggal,
Present.
Mike Duran,
Present.
Curtis Good,
Yep.
and Servando Arnelas.
Present.
The record will show we have quorum with all 7 board members present.
All right, so if you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this point on our agenda, we have an opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody here who wishes to do so?
Okay.
Mr. Gaither.
Thank you, Mr. Tamayo.
If you could come up to the microphone, please.
No problem. Speak loud, but I'll use the mic if you want me to. So what I have here is your paper that you sent out in January regarding the use of pest sniffing dogs and unlicensed activity regarding that item. I want to commend you on taking the initiative to do something about this, but now I urge you to take the initiative and do something else about another problem of unlicensed activity. And that's the home inspectors pretending to be termite inspectors, pretending to be licensees of the board. It really frustrates me when I see these home inspectors, when I drive up to a job and I see them out there with their 4-foot or 8-foot ski pole, probing the eaves, probing the rafter tails, probing siding. And it's even more frustrating when a realtor calls me and says, well, the home inspector says there's termites or there's dry rot, and how come it's not on your report? And now I have to go out there and justify my licensed certified copy of a report based on a guy that doesn't know what he's doing. So please, I urge you to consider this now, this unlicensed activity. Perhaps put it on a future agenda for consideration and do something about it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan, can you get back to us on a future agenda about what we do as far as that, and if there's any need for board action? I'm pretty sure that's already something that's well within our abilities, right?
I already have notes on the agenda for the July meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gaither.
Did you say the July meeting? Okay.
One thing I did neglect to do after we did our roll call is to acknowledge and welcome our new board member, Servando Arnelas, and I'm glad to welcome you to the board. And we have had some opportunity to speak just about how we conduct business here and the types of things that we do. So I think we can expect great things from our new board member, and it's also nice to have a full board. So, all right, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so we'll move into our petition for reinstatement for Rodney Lambright. Is Mr. Lambright here? Welcome, sir. And so I'm going to hand the proceedings over to our administrative law judge.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Lambright.
Morning.
Let me just give you a little bit of orientation before we proceed, so that this matter can flow a bit more smoothly. On a petition for reinstatement, the focus is on rehabilitation, and that focus really is what you have been doing since the time that your license was revoked. It's not an opportunity to go back and challenge the grounds for revocation. That would be a misuse of time. This is not a time, as they say, to relitigate. It is your time to tell the board members what you have been doing since the revocation that would warrant a finding of rehabilitation. So it's really all about rehabilitation. The nature of the proceedings, the order of the proceedings, is that the Deputy Attorney General, Tim McDonough, will first present a summary to the board of your case, and he will present your petition package, which I will mark and admit into evidence. You will then have an opportunity to testify, and in addition to any witnesses you may have. Do you have any witnesses here to testify today?
No, just myself.
Okay. And you'll also, the board members will then have an opportunity to question you. Do you have any documents in addition to the petition package that you have submitted?
No.
Okay, very good. So, and before we go any further, the record should reflect that we have a quorum of the board is present. And Mr. McDonough, do you wish to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. Tim McDonough, Deputy Attorney General, appearing here on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. Your Honor, I would like to first pass to you and mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the original petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same of this exhibit.
Very well.
Your Honor, I can would like to briefly go through those documents. This packet consists of a March 9, 2017 correspondence from the board confirming the petitioner's hearing date for today at this time and location, as well as a request for confirmation. Also, petitioner signed confirmation request regarding the hearing at 9 a.m. today, which is dated March 14, 2017. Further, a February 14, 2017 letter from the board to petitioner, Mr. Lambright, regarding guidelines for petitions for reinstatement or reduction of penalty. The guidelines themselves are confirmed received by Mr. Lambright with his signature on page 2, and that is dated February 18, 2017. Your Honor, there's the petition for reinstatement of revoked operator's license OPR 7410 in branch 3, which was submitted by petitioner, signed and dated February 18th of 2017, followed by the petition for reinstatement of revoked license declaration, signed and dated February 18th, 2017. A request for live scan services for petitioner, which was completed on February 17th, 2017. Your Honor, the next large packet of information is a letter and default decision and order from case number 2006-13 regarding the accusation against A+ Termite Control with Rodney Allen Lambright as the owner. And the accusation against A+ Termite Control, company registration certificate number PR1116, and Rodney Allen Lambright, operator's license number OPR 7410. That has an effective, the decision has an effective date of October 6, 2006. Also, accusation number 2006-13 is attached to that decision, and obviously the decision revokes the company registration certificate and petitioner's operator's license. Your Honor, there's also the March 15, 2017 memorandum from board staff indicating that as of that date, petitioner had not paid the fine associated with citation number CF 04-44 followed by the decision in that citation number CF 04-44, which upheld a fine of $1,300. Included in those documents are the actual citation number CF 04-44. Your Honor, the packet includes a license history for company registration certificate number PR 1116 in branch 3, which was issued to A Plus Termite Control with Rodney Lambright, as owner and qualifying manager, which was issued on January 12th of 1988. The company registration certificate was issued 3 fines between 1990 and 2003, one being the aforementioned citation number CF 04-44. The company registration certificate was suspended on June 14, 2005 due to failure to maintain the surety bond. The company certificate was suspended on August 29, 2006 for failing to have a qualifying manager. On November 22, 2005, accusation number 2006-13 was filed against the company registration, with the company registration being revoked as a result of the default decision on this accusation on October 6th of 2006. Your Honor and board members, there's also the license history for petitioner's operator's license number OPR 7410, which was initially issued in branch 3 to petitioner on February 19th of 1986 as an employee of Amos Termite Control in La Verne, California. The license was issued 3 fines between 1990 and 2003, one being citation number CF 04-44. On December 21st, 2004, the license was suspended pursuant to Family Code Section 17520. On November 22nd, 2005, accusation number 2006-13 was filed against the operator's license, with the operator's license being revoked as a result of the default decision regarding that accusation on October 6th of 2006. Finally, Your Honor, there is a license history for petitioner's field representative license number FR 11683, which was initially issued in branch 3 to petitioner in 1983 as an employee of Amos Termite Control, again in La Verne, California. The field representative license was canceled on June 30th, 1989. Your Honor, I'll briefly give a summary of the case for you. The board issued petitioner's operator's license number OPR 7410 in branch 3 on February 19th, 1986. On November 22nd, 2005, accusation number 2006-13 was filed against petitioner's company, A Plus Termite Control, registration certificate number PR 1116, and against petitioner's operator's license number OPR 7410. Accusation number 2006-13 alleged violations of the Business and Professions Code relating to a project that petitioner worked on in 2002 and 2003 in La Verne, California. The accusation alleged 7 causes for discipline based on violations of the Business and Professions Code, including sections 8635, departure from or disregard of plans and specifications, section 8641, as it relates to 8518, failure to issue a completion notice, section 8641, as it relates to 8519, improper certifications, 8641, as it relates to 8622, failure to comply with the board's notice, 8641, as it applies to regulation 1937.14, poor workmanship, 8641, regulation 1993, subdivision E, improper reinspection report, and section 8644, fraud or misrepresentation irrespective of report. Your Honor, the accusation and related documents were served on petitioner at his address of record in San Dimas, California on November 30th, 2005. petitioner failed to file a notice of defense within 15 days after service of the accusation. On September 5th, 2006, a default decision was ordered revoking respondent's company's A-plus termite control registration certificate number PR 1116 and petitioner's operator's license number OPR 7410. That decision became effective on October 6th of 2006. Your Honor, that concludes my presentation of the documentary evidence and case history. I am prepared to proceed with some questions for the petitioner unless yourself or the board would like to proceed first.
I would first ask Mr. Lambright to testify if you wish.
Okay.
And let me swear you in if you will stand. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, please be seated. And for the record, please spell your first and last name for the court reporter.
It's Rodney Lambright, RODNEY LAMBRIGHT.
Okay. Now, Mr. Lambright, is there anything you would like to tell the board at this point? This is your opportunity to address the board.
Well, just a minor issue. When he was going over things in 1990 with Amos Termite, I had my business going. My brother's Ronald Lambright.
You should pull the microphone closer to you.
In 1990, I had my own company going, and my dad had passed away. My brother took over my dad's company, Ronald Lambright. He said something about a violation in 1990 for Amos Termite.
The court reporter's going to have trouble unless you keep close to the microphone.
So I'm not used to.
I know.
In 1990, I wasn't. My brother was Ronald Lambright with Amos Termite.
Okay.
I started mine back in like 1987.
So what the board...
But, I mean, it's not. It's a minor one. He was, that's.
Board needs to hear is what you've been doing since your revocation.
I guess a vacation, pretty much. I mean, when I worked, excuse me?
Did you say, I guess, a vacation, pretty much?
Yeah. I was working 60 to 80 hours a week. I did all my own inspections, my work. I was doing all the typing at night. 98, my son was born with severe autism. Somehow it took its toll on my wife. And it just carried over, and, she was just getting behind as a mother, and, pretty soon we were just going out, like, to dinner, going out to eat every night I got home. It's like, and that's to take the toll on me working till typing 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, getting up at 6 or 7. I mean, it wasn't like that every week, but they took our kids, and when this callback came through is when they had suspended my license and my driver's license for child support, that they took kids from me and my wife. And the one thing I said back there at the time is, I go, why didn't they take her beautician license or her driver's license? And they picked on me. And at that time I said, you know what? I haven't taken more than a 3-day vacation in 15, 16 years. I said, you know what? They could just pay my wages from now on. I go, let the taxpayers do it. I'm just tired, I look back on that, it just, everything built up, and, it's just all those years not taking a vacation, and then I just felt I was picked on, that they didn't, because me and my wife were still married, living together. We never had no problems, but she's gone now, and we got divorced, and I just thought it was unfair that they picked on me and suspended all my stuff and not hers. I'm like, how can they do that? And it came in December, in the month where it was one of the slower years after a busy year the year before. This was the December of 2004, and when they suspended it and I had no way of doing anything, I just walked. I mean, I always did good work. I took care of all my customers. I went way beyond anything. I mean, I'd go back, over and over things that wasn't even, they'd break open a wall, I'd still take care of it. I was trying to have less problems as I could. And things happen, and I wished I could go back in time, and I'm just kind of tired of living off the taxpayers' dollars, I got a knee that's broke out of place that hasn't been fixed in 2.5 years, and I got x-rays a couple months ago. That's what made me call up the board, because I'm going to have to get it taken care of myself, because the doctor 2.5 years ago for a year, I've been trying to get him to do x-rays. He wouldn't do it, so I just finally walked from the doctor and just want to get back on my feet again. I have no excuse. I just, everything boiled up from not taking vacations, and if I ever get another chance, I'm going to make sure I take at least four weeks vacation a year. I mean, I work through Christmases. At one point, I can't even tell you how much I was doing at one point.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say?
No, but I know it's true when they say that divorce rate, because I never thought I'd ever get divorced when you have an autistic child that's 90%, because I said there's no way we'd ever, just, it took its toll, and and I'm sorry, I wish I could take it back, and I can't take it back, but I can try to do good in the future, try to help people what I can, and I see so many homeless people on the street, and 3 years ago I was actually homeless for 7 weeks, and I didn't like it. And also, my brother, he does termite work, and he told me that if I can get my license back, he don't do all that much. He's in an area where, the desert, where there's not, so much work. He said, that he would let me go along to get back in the game. If I got my license back, he'd let me go along with him so I can get everything going again. He gave me all of his, I guess a year or two ago he did his continuing ed points. He gave me all of his books. I actually got them in my car. So I haven't had a chance to look at them yet, but I just hope you guys maybe give me another chance. I'd really appreciate it. I won't fail you, I promise.
Okay, at this point, the Deputy Attorney General, Mr. McDonough, has some questions of you.
Okay.
Then the board members will ask questions of you. Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Lambright, do you have any criminal convictions that the board is not aware of?
No.
And do you have any criminal charges pending against you in
No.
the state?
No.
Mr. Lambright, why did you not appear for your hearing regarding accusation number 2006-13?
I just, at the time I said, like I said, I just felt like I was being picked on and discriminated against back then. They didn't do nothing to my wife. They didn't do nothing to women with children, only to the husbands. And I said, the heck with it. I said, I'm on vacation for the rest of my life. Been on welfare, been on everything. I'm on my disability. Got a knee that's broke out of place that I can't get fixed by anybody. I mean, it only bothers me certain times, but what bothers me is I just can't straighten it. That's my only, I just, kind of tired of living off the taxpayers' dollar. I don't know what else to say.
The accusation, which ultimately revoked your license, alleged 7 causes for discipline from your work at a project on 2286 Arthur Way in Laverne, California. What was the reasons why there were so many problems?
Well, see, the Heather Miller, that was a job that was actually, like, my brother brought the work over when he went out of Amos Termite, and that was like one of his jobs that was doing under me. And, you know, everything just happened, and they suspended my licenses right before I could take care of it, so I just taking its toll, you know. I just...
And was this kind of during the period when?
Yeah,
your life was falling apart?
yes, they suspended my license, and I couldn't take care of the callback, or I would have went and took care of it. I mean, it wouldn't even have went to the state. I just, you know, it was...
You mentioned that you were tired of living off the taxpayer dollar. Have you been receiving disability?
Yes.
And that has to do with your knee?
Yeah, well, it's under the 50 to 54 rule, where if you've only had, I don't know if you're familiar with that, if you've only had a skilled job and you've never done anything else, and you're 50 to 54, you qualify for your disability with, like, my knee broke out of place and stuff. I was telling them that for years, and my problem is I also walked when I should have been getting more than just the $900. I walked when it was going to be off my work, to where I'd probably be getting $1,600 or $1,800 a month. But I got frustrated with the system and walked, you know, way back 10 years ago, and I mean, it's pretty much the only thing I know how to do, you know.
All right, so you indicated in your petition for reinstatement that you have not been employed over the last 5 years.
No.
So have you not been?
Well, I tried to drive for Lyft last December.
Let me stop you for a sec. Just let me ask the
Okay,
question
okay.
just for the court reporter.
Okay, sorry.
To assist, no problem. Have you done any work for which you've been paid over the last, say, 10 years?
No.
What happened when you tried to work for Lyft?
It was too stressful, and you making $4 an hour, driving for 100 hours, you know, making $400 clear after gas and putting 2,000 miles on your car in 1 week is not, you know. Everybody keeps telling me go out to Los Angeles. Well, I'm like 50 miles from Los Angeles. By the amount of money it took me to go out there and get back, I couldn't even tell you how many different days that I actually lost money. I just thought something like that was going to work out, but everybody like over exaggerates how great of a job it is, and then in February they cut their fees like almost in half, pretty much. I had to call 911 twice while I was working. That's the thing. I had a guy that wouldn't get out of my car for an hour.
Are you confident that you'll be able to handle the rigors of working in the structural pest control field if you were to get your license back in
Yeah.
light of your disability?
Yes.
Your knee will hold up?
Yes. I know everybody, when they see my knee, oh, let me take care of it. I go, my knee just doesn't, you know, because it used to like do that in termite work. It would give, and then it'd be maybe like this for a couple days, and it would give back. But this time, 2 years ago, it just never, 3 years ago, however long it's been, just never went back into place. And I had x-rays 6-7 weeks ago, and told me I need a new knee replacement. And when I asked him, you know, how much you think it's going to cost, over $10,000, and he like laughed, oh, way over $10,000. That wasn't even my physician. That was the joint doctor trying to get the insurance to pay for it and look at it. They wouldn't even, and I couldn't even get my doctor from the insurance company to even x-ray it. He just kept putting it off, like, well, we'll do it next time. You know, 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. I mean, I just kind of like, gave up on that doctor. I mean, they did the same thing with my brother for 2 years before they took his thyroid out, you know. He had to have it all the way out. And
Since your license was revoked back in 2006, have you taken any courses or training or continuing education to keep yourself knowledgeable regarding new advances in technology and structural pest control work as well as termite work?
no, but my brother's been telling me a whole bunch of, like, different things. Like, he said they got subterranean termite chemical now that they just track back to the thing and kill out. You know, I'm like, really? I'm like, you know, I wish that was like that when, you know, we had to get the area where they were not track them back. And then I guess you got to keep the field sheets for 3 years. He, you know, just, you know, when we go out, he tells, you know, just talk, you know, not.
All right, so there certainly have been a lot of advancements in the structural pest control field and termite.
Yeah.
If the Structural Pest Control Board were to decide to grant your request to be reinstated, would you be amendable to, if they asked, to taking the Structural Pest Control Board operator's examination as potentially a prior condition to being reinstated? As
Yeah,
an operator?
that's fine.
You would be willing to do that?
Yeah.
And how would you prepare for that?
Well, my brother just gave me all of his
Study material?
study material and all that good stuff, and whatever's not in there, then I'd, you know, see if I can get some more from you guys. And
Okay. One of the documents submitted indicates that with regards to citation number CF 04-4, which you received, you have not yet paid the $1,300 fine associated with that citation. And why not?
I walked from everything. I know when my driver's license was suspended after I moved to Arkansas, and I went down there just to get my ID. She goes, you know, you can get your driver's license. It's 7 years. And she said after 7 years they can't collect on you, so I don't know if that applies here too. Or, I mean, it's not that I'm not willing to pay it, but I need time. You know,
You don't have the means at this point.
not at this point, no.
And you mentioned that your ambitions, if you were to get your operator's license back, would be to go to work with your brother.
Yeah, he said I could go along with him, but he wouldn't be able to, like, you know, really pay me, you know, because he's like, he said he doesn't do much work. He's up in an area where there ain't, but he said I could go with him, and then he said if he feels that I could handle it, that he would let me start up a branch office maybe one day off of his. So
Okay.
I know that'll probably be a little ways out.
All right.
That's
So,
something I'm kind of maybe, you know, hoping if I can get my license back to do something like that.
okay, potentially get a company registration.
Yeah, maybe one, that would probably be way off, you know, because, you know, I'd need all the equipment and everything that goes with that, and I know that's not exactly inexpensive anymore.
Right. Okay,
I don't know if it matters at the time. I don't know if I was the youngest, because I don't know if you guys kept records, but I was like one of the youngest people to ever get an operator's license at the time in Branch 3. Don't know if that matters. I've been working since I was 14 with my dad. Because back then, and you know, when I was 14, they didn't have all these regulations, and you had to be so old, and pretty bad with the chemical back then, you know. I can't remember if that's, what was that, KK, ethylene dibromide or something like that, where you'd pour it in the Sure Shot and it would bubble out, and boy, you talk about I know everything's advanced a lot now, so everything's a lot safer. And
Asking along those lines, can you assure the board that should you be reinstated, that you would kind of do the studying and work that really would be required to get yourself up to speed after really 10 years of not being in the field at all?
yeah, I will.
Would you take a course?
Yeah, if you want, that's fine. I'll do whatever it takes.
You are on the board. Those are the questions that I have.
Okay, and now would be the time for the board to ask any questions, the board members, and I will just start working down the line. And Ms. Brand, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Dugal, do you have any questions?
Not this time.
And Mr. Good?
Yes, welcome, and I'm really sad to hear about your life experiences. But you honestly have to take some ownership in some of this sometime. And I will share with you, your testimony today isn't the most convincing. On February 17th, you received this paper that they sent to you for guidelines for reinstatement. And on these guidelines is a number of things that the board has requested you to bring for this hearing. Do you recall seeing this?
Yes.
Did you just ignore it?
No, I just, I got, it said that you wanted to be like familiar with, knowledgeable still, and that's why I got the, I was telling my brother, he gave me his, continuing education books from last year or the year before, whenever he did it.
Okay, but you didn't bring anything else in the room with you today?
No, I
To share
didn't.
with?
No, I got them in my car if you want me to go get them.
No, I don't want you to do that. You should have brought them in now.
Yeah, well, I didn't, they were in a big pack, I didn't realize you wanted me to.
Okay, you testified earlier, you haven't taken any additional continuing education courses to bring
No.
you up to date?
No.
Oh, let me ask the questions first and then reply. So you haven't taken any classes?
No,
You've only been discussing potential about changes in the regulations with your brother for the past 10 years.
yeah.
Do you do any church services?
I went about a month ago when a friend came from Florida out here. We went to a church in Covina, but I never had time when I was working to go to church. I always wanted to, I tell everybody, and
Okay, you understand we're a consumer protection board, right?
yes,
And some of your violations with the counties and with this board was failing to maintain insurance and bonds.
yes,
Is that very responsible?
no,
And you are aware of the $1,300 fine that you were issued back in '06.
yes.
You did not contact the board to try to set up any kind of payment program.
No, I'd moved to Arkansas back then, and I wasn't even getting my mail then out here.
Okay,
no
but
more. I know.
there's mail service. You could have set up a payment program.
I was on welfare at the time. I had no way. I just walked. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. It just, everything crashed down on me.
I totally understand that, and I feel very bad, and that you're,
I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm just,
well, my point was
explain
gonna-
the situation.
my point being is there's only so much this board can do for you.
Yeah,
You have to be responsible for the rest.
yes,
So when they send you guidelines and suggestions on doing some things, I suggest you try to comply with a few of those,
okay.
okay? So, I have no further questions.
Chair have any questions?
So, Mr. Lambright, do you understand that So the document that Mr. Good was referring to was things that we consider that demonstrate that you've taken actions since your revocation that shows that you're rehabilitated. Do you understand that that's the type of thing that we need you to bring if you want to get your license back?
Yeah, what type of things would they be, in your opinion, for?
Well, it's in black and white on this paper, but things that show that you've taken action to demonstrate that you're turning things around, that you've taken action to keep up or get back up to speed on the regulations. That's one form. Showing that you've given back to the community, showing that you've, and I don't know that this necessarily applies, but if you were, well, I don't know that the rehabilitation group, that doesn't sound like it applies to you, but the things that you can do are things that moving forward, if you read this and think about, well, what can I do to demonstrate to the board that I'm serious about operating a business within the law and protecting the consumer, so that you're showing regard for the community. That's really what this is about. But it's not about you promising that you're going to do it. It's about demonstrating that it's about taking action and coming back to us with evidence that you're knowledgeable, that you've taken courses and not just sort of asserting that you talked to your brother. If you can take the initiative to find the courses, take those, so there's a third party that says, yes, Mr. Lambright showed up. So that's the type of thing that we need. We need other people to be able to provide you evidence that you can bring in here that shows, yeah, I've got my act together. I'm ready to be a responsible business owner. I'm ready to do this according to the laws and regulations.
Yeah, I was talking to Melissa on the phone, and I was asking her if I needed to, do stuff like that first, and she goes, well, to see the board to see if they're going to maybe just have you retake the course or the continuing ed. So I was kind of like just waiting on that part. I mean, if I knew, that was going to be done. But see, I grabbed the pamphlet in the back because I wanted to go over all the rules that you had in the back here, because I haven't seen them in a long time. I don't know if that demonstrates my, wanting to keep up with things a little bit, something. But I'm going to make sure I keep up and, and stay on top of things and, go online, get study material, and so I know, what's going on where, and
Okay.
the new regulations and laws and everything going on.
So I do have a question about whether you've done any community service in any sort of way.
No, for many years, I was just like sitting and laying in my room doing nothing for years.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Van Steenwyk?
No questions.
Mr. Ornelas?
No questions.
And Mr. Durant?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I have a question, and it pertains, it's already been asked. But on the guidelines for the petition, it states everything that you should have brought in to convince us as a board why we should consider to bring your license back active or give you the opportunity. Is it my understanding that you were out of the state of California for X amount of years?
I moved to Arkansas for about a year and a half, just long enough to go back there and get divorced, and haven't seen my kids since.
And the rest of the time you were here in the state of California?
Yeah, I came back and then I was at my sister's in Laverne just.
Because on the guidelines, the very first article, which goes to 11.522, it states there that the petitioner has the burden to demonstrate that he or she has the necessary and current qualifications. Did you read that?
Yes,
It is your signature on back of the page?
Yes.
It's signed?
yes.
Okay. I, as a board member, and as for the board, I want to give you this book.
Okay,
It's Structural Pest Control Board, State of California. Dave will give it to you up there.
okay. Thank
It's
you.
something that I would encourage you to read and understand
Okay.
and work with the Structural Pest Control Board. They're here to give you all the guidance and directions that you need,
Okay.
you know, with our staff, you know.
Okay.
And
See,
I-
I've never had, you know, been like this. So, you know, I've been actually like, you know, just worrying about getting up here, you know. And
right.
I know it had said the things, but I figured if you guys put as like me doing continuing ed points or doing my license again, you know, you know, I mean, I know it's no excuse. I signed the thing, but just the way Melissa, you know, I was talking to her because she's really nice. She's like really nice.
Well, thank you.
And she's like one of the nicest people you get talking on the phone. She, you know. And, you know, I just talked to her, and she called me up, and it's like she went out of her way just to, you know, to help me get this meeting this time and not have to wait 3 months. And I really did have, like, a short period of time from, like, you got your meeting to get up here to even if I would have set up anything that I could have, I probably wouldn't even have got it done. I know it probably would have set up, and it would have, you know, been good, but I was just waiting to come here to see because I didn't know. I didn't know. It's been 12 years, and I didn't know if I was going to be in and out here in 1 minute or how these things work. I've never been here before.
But you do understand, Mr. Lambright, that we
Yes.
have to make a decision on the facts that we hear today.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Do any other board members have questions or comments?
Yeah, I just have one. Mr. Lambright, do you still maintain a copy of this guidelines, or would
Yeah,
you like this one?
I probably have the copy in my car if you want me to go get it.
No, I don't want you to do that. I just want to make sure you have a copy for when you leave here today.
Yes,
You know what
yes.
those guidelines are. I will give my copy to you.
Yeah, I have it in my car, I promise you. I brought everything.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's also in your materials, it's on page 6.
Okay, thank you.
Do any other board members have questions or comments? Okay. And Mr. Mc,
I have one, if it's all right. one
that's
last
fine, Mr. McDonough.
one. Okay. Mr. Lambert, do you have a more general plan as far as getting yourself kind of going and moving in life in general?
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get back on my feet, you know. And see, my brother, he told me, I think he said he did like 5 or 7 inspections or something the last month or something. I'm like, wow, that's not many, you know. He doesn't,
Right.
you know. So it's not like I'd be just going out there full force. It'd be like slowly getting into it. And
Do you have a plan to kind of get yourself going in general? Maybe just in. You said you spent a lot of time on
yeah, so
this couch and so forth, and
Yeah.
as far as that.
I was hoping that when I get my license back, that when I'm with my brother, you know, and start, you know, getting back in the hang of it, that I can get a branch office going off as, and then I can, you know, push for work and all that. Because he's like in the high desert where there ain't much work, and I'm like, why are you working? You know, you should be working down where there's money, you know, down the hill. And he wants to work in like the Victorville area, and I mean, if you're going to make money, you should make money, right? That's my motto. Go where the work is, not where they're mostly clear reports.
Those are all the questions I have, Your Honor.
Okay. If there are no other questions, and it appears there are no other questions, then that will conclude the hearing in this matter. I have marked the petition exhibit as Exhibit Number 1, and it is admitted into evidence. And the record is closed, and the matter is submitted, and we are off the record in this matter. And Mr. Lambright, the court reporter will have a piece of paper for you that you will have for your records in case you want to order a transcript of these proceedings at any time. It would be at your cost. And for the Deputy Attorney General, one for you as well. And we will have one for the board. And at this point, the board will deliberate in closed session. And so we'd ask that everyone please clear the room, and the board will then deliberate.
So this is. Call us back to order under open session, and our first item of business is approval of minutes from our January 12th board meeting. Do we have any discussion? And do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from January. Yeah. To approve the minutes from January 12th. I just, if you weren't here, I would suggest that you abstain, but otherwise, all those in favor say.
I'm sorry if I could.
Do you want this in roll call?
Yes, for open meeting, the votes need to be taken by roll call.
Okay.
But I was just going to interject before you take the vote, if you could ask for public comment.
Darn. Okay. Do we have any public comment on the minutes? All right.
Okay, so roll call. Dave Tamayo,
Abstain.
Darren Van Steenwyk.
Aye.
Ronna Brand. Ramesh Duggal.
Here.
Mike Duran. Curtis Good. And Servando Ornelas.
All right, so that motion passes 5 in favor, no objections, or no noes, and 2 abstentions. All right, so moving on to the executive officer's report.
Okay, so in your board packages are licensing statistics and survey results. Also in your board packages are WDO statistics, and then the last numerous pages is your regulation update. As I've explained in the past, something that is highlighted in bold, we're in the process of working on. Otherwise, this is just informational purposes that we put in your board packages for each board meeting. Do you have questions on licensing results or survey? Okay. I have a few other things that I wanted to go over. I wanted to touch on our CCR Code Section 1960. 1960 is the regulation that was effective 1/1/2016. That regulation is the one that in regards to LifeScan, requiring those licensees that had never been LifeScanned before to go get LifeScanned prior to renewal. So that went into effect on 1/1/16. So those individuals that had to renew June 30th of 16 had to comply with going in and getting LifeScan, or their renewal was held up. In 2016, we had 1,500 licensees that needed to go get LifeScan. 1,300 of those did. 200 elected not to go do the LifeScan process and allowed their license to cancel. Now, maybe that was an individual that was going to allow their license to cancel regardless, but we had 200 individuals that did not go get LifeScan for the renewal process in 2016. For 2017, we've identified just shy of 1,600 licensees that must get LifeScanned. To date, 700 of those have went and got LifeScan. Now, of course, they still have a few more months because their license expires June 30th of 17, but they do have the grace period, the delinquent renewal cycle of September 30th. So they still do have a few months to comply, but right now we still have 900 outstanding that have not completed the process. And then just FYI, for June 30th of 2018, there were 1,700 individuals. 700 of those individuals have already completed the process for the 2018 renewal cycle. Do you have questions regarding that topic?
Questions?
Okay.
So, I do have a question. So on the folks that have not done it yet, and do we, yeah, it's their obligation, but do we
notify them?
Yeah, is there a plan
Yes.
to re-notify
Yes.
them? So,
Sorry, I should mention that. In 2016, all 5,000 licensees were notified that this went into effect, you're impacted, you're going to have to do LifeScan for renewal. Then in 2016, when we identified just the individuals for that year, then we sent out a first, a second, and a third, Ronnie? Yeah, I think we said a first, a second, and a third. Reminding them, you got to do this for your renewal in 2016. So, of course, we're doing that for 2017 as well, and we will for 2018.
thank you.
I wanted to bring to the board members' attention that Department of Consumer Affairs has a new director. Awet Kadani stepped down in February, and our new director, although I have not personally met him, our new director is Dean Grafile. Oh, can you tell him again? Grafila. Okay. So he took over 1st of March. Is that correct? He took over the 1st of March. Another item I wanted to mention is, I mentioned it at the January meeting as well. We're underway with our occupational analysis for OPR Branch 3. I was a little concerned about getting subject matter experts to the workshop that we have scheduled for the end of April, but it looks like, Christina, you've had a pretty good response. Where is Christina? Okay. I believe that Christina has had a really good response. I think she has like 15 OPRs that are willing to participate and help with that workshop at the end of April, which was making me nervous because it's kind of the busy season for the industry. But one other thing, I think this is my last item that I wanted to mention, unless you have questions.
Darren, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I saw you move your arm, but.
One more item I wanted to bring to your attention, just as a heads up, our sunset date is 1/1/19. So we will be bringing to you a sunset report for your review at our October 2017 board meeting. If you'll remember from October 2013, we had to bring our sunset report to the board members at the October board meeting and get approval before we could submit it to the legislature on 11/1. So that will be the process again this year. We haven't started working on it as of yet. The department is planning a workshop for executive officers and assistant executive officers to attend for all the programs that are impacted with the 1/1/19 sunset date. So just FYI, you'll see that 150-page report coming in October. I don't have anything else.
Curtis, you have a question?
Yeah, Susan, can you discuss for taking examinations and filing for the examination, the turnaround time with, was it PCI?
With PSI?
PSI,
Sure.
excuse me.
So once the application is received, The application has been reviewed, it's been processed and approved, that individual has been approved for testing, then overnight, we run a process that tells PSI that that individual has been approved. That individual is notified then hard copy, but they are also notified via email that they've been approved, that they can call PSI and schedule their test. Once that individual calls to schedule their exam, within our contract with PSI, that individual, they have to find that individual a seat within 5 days, within 5 working days. Now, it may not ultimately be the seat that you prefer. You may have to travel some distance, but I mean, it's certainly much better than it was years ago when we had Sacramento and San Bernardino only, because we do have 17 locations in California and 22 locations outside of California. And Ronnie, don't we have a couple more locations now?
I think we have 2 or 3 bonus locations.
Yeah, we have like 2 or 3 bonus locations. So I think we're up to about 20 locations in California. So, like I said, PSI is required to find you a seat within 5 days. It may not be the preferred seat. I guess there has been some complaints about individuals trying to get a seat and they've been delayed. I inquired with PSI just this last week. Now, if you have a large company that is attempting to send multiple candidates to one location at one time and test for examination security purposes, PSI will not allow that. They will only allow 2 or 3 individuals from the pest control industry at an exam site at the same time at once for, like I said, security purposes. A lot of times companies would like to have these people carpool, then they're talking about the exam before the exam, they're talking about the exam in the lobby, they're talking about the exam after they leave. So they're trying to avoid that process and make sure that our exams stay secure. Do you have other questions for me or on anything?
I have a question for council. When we're not looking at any board action, is each item required to allow public comment?
No, you can just ask for public comment at the conclusion of the executive officer's report.
That's what I.
Oh yeah, usually after each agenda item, you can, if there's no action required, you can just ask for public comment at that time.
Okay. So at this point, I will ask any public comment on the executive officer's report. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, which is discussing and possible board action regarding proposed amendments to the Business and Professions Code 8505.11 and also to California Code of Regulations. So.
Dave, Alex Delatorre asked for this item. He asked for it at the January board meeting, but we didn't get it in time to get it on the agenda, so we put it on this agenda. I was told that he was going to be here today. Do we have Alex in the room? Okay. If you'd like, we can carry it over again and put it on the agenda for July and attempt to contact him, or we can take this off the calendar.
And who's?
He's a licensee that I spoke to, and this is his recommended language. I spoke to him, and he said he was going to be here to present the language to you.
Any feelings amongst the board as to whether to continue this item to a future?
I will comment, without him not being here to testify the exact intent of what he's trying to change. I think this could be confusing and misleading to consumers. I think he's battling an industry issue, not necessarily a consumer issue. So I don't mean to speak for him, but I would like to have had him here to find out what really bothers him about that. But I do find that this doesn't really, to me, provide any real consumer protection unless he has some other really good argument.
My suggestion is that we not consider this at this time and not put it on a future board agenda, and, which doesn't mean that it can't be added at some other point, but let's just, right.
We'll try and get on an agenda if we have time to put on agenda for the upcoming next meeting.
Okay. So, any comments from the public on this item? Okay, so moving on to our Structural Pest Control Board Research Advisory Panel update. Susan?
For an update for the board members, primarily the update is just that at the January board meeting, board members directed staff, the motion was to accept the recommendations from the Research Advisory Panel and directed staff to start working with the Consumer Affairs Contracts Unit to write a request for a proposal. We are in that process of writing that request for a proposal. It's not quite finished yet. I would like to get some clarification in regards to the January board meeting and the intent of the board members' motion at that time. I believe that your intent at that time was to accept the research panel advisory's recommendations and to move forward with working with the department to prepare a request for proposals and to distribute that proposals out to researchers. And distribute to researchers was not included in the motion. I asked Michael this week if I could ask for clarification under this agenda item, and he said yes, I could ask for clarification from the board members if that was your intent or it was not at the January board meeting. So therefore, do you want to see the RFP when it's finished, or do you want us to move forward with getting the RFP out to researchers?
Well,
I have a little bit of a thought on that. So let me ask a clarifying question. If we were going to take a look at the RFP before you pass it out, how much time would that delay getting that RFP out to the people that would then be submitting their research?
Probably not long. Christina's been working on it. She's getting close to having it finished. Of course, it has to go to Consumer Affairs Contracts Unit for review and approval. I'm sure that we could bring it to you for the July board meeting. Most likely, I would suspect that we could bring it to the July board meeting. It would not have dates as to deadlines on when the researchers have to submit their proposals or ask questions, things of that nature, because we have to do that timeline with the Consumer Affairs to make sure that we meet those guidelines. But I'm sure that we would have it ready for you for the July board meeting if you wanted to review it again before we mail it out. And then it could be, if you're happy with it, it could be sent out within a day or two after the July meeting.
Well, just because I'm thinking that timeline-wise, you mentioned we're entering our busy season, and I'm afraid that if all of this gets pushed back July or August, then theoretically, the researchers may not be able to actually do field work or start into field work until the season of 18. Versus if we can get it out to the researchers within the next few, within the next few weeks to a month, there's a half decent chance that they, depending upon what work they're going to do, they could start in 17. And so that's just my thought. I don't know if anybody else on the board has an opinion on that, but
well, I'd say that even if there's proposals that are accepted, they still have the lag of bringing people into contracts and things like that, which, from my experience, is not a rapid process with the state, although I'm not really sure how quickly DCA does it, but...
Well, and of course, you have to take into consideration that these proposals are going to go to the research advisory panel for review and then back to you for final determination. So we're probably still out.
Several months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's really a matter of what the board's preference is, if we want to just delegate it to staff to, finish it up, get it out on the street, or if you want to have a a look at it. So I think that's within our discretion. So it's really a matter of the board's preference. So
I think its staff is qualified to take care of the language, that they are doing it for long, so I don't see we have any expertise to add on to it.
is there anybody who feels strongly that or wants to argue that we should take another bite at the apple on this? So we don't need to take
We need a motion.
a vote.
Okay.
You just wanted to know our feelings on this.
Okay, thank you for the
Okay.
clarification. We'll get the RFP done, working with the department then, and we'll get it out to researchers as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item 10, and as discussion possible board position on AB 593, fumigation enforcement program. Susan?
Okay, so the structural fumigation enforcement program. That sunset date is currently set to sunset on 1/1/18. So board members, you directed me months ago, probably the October board meeting, to go find an author to make sure that we get a bill in place and get this program extended for at least another 4 years for the fumigation enforcement program. So working with Laura Parra, PCOC's lobbyist, we did find an author that was willing to pick this up. They picked it up. That is AB 593. This bill does extend the sunset enforcement program for 4 more years. The bill got double referred. It got referred to the Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials Committee. That hearing was on. Darn it! I didn't write down my date. Okay, well, that hearing, I forget what day. I went. We did get out of that committee. It passed 7-0 for that committee. Then the bill was referred to appropriations, of course, because there is a fee tied in with this language. Fumigators are required to pay a fee to the county agricultural commissioners for every fumigation they do. So therefore, the bill got referred to appropriations. It was in appropriations yesterday at the Capitol, and it was passed out of appropriations with a vote of 17-0. So now this bill goes on to the Assembly Committee floor, and then we'll start the process on the Senate side. So unless you have questions, and that's just an update on where we are with that bill. Obviously, the board members are in support because you initiated this and asked me to go find an author for it. So,
Curtis?
Yes, I'd like to comment on this, and I'm definitely in support of the extension of the fumigation enforcement program. I try to attend a number of the fumigation enforcement quarterly meetings that they have. And to remind everybody in the audience, this is regarding just 4 counties in the state. And that's San Diego, Orange County, LA, and then Santa Clara. Part of the original part of this intent of that legislation from PCOC some 20-some years ago was to provide consistency in enforcement. And that's the real purpose of the quarterly meetings. What is occurring, and particularly with San Diego County, is that they're traditionally a lot of times just citing the companies, when clearly their personal protective equipment issues, other issues that the licensee on that job should be responsible. And we've had discussions with San Diego County regarding their enforcement practices. It isn't consistent with the other 3 counties. So as a board, I would share that with all the other board members on there. That wasn't the intent. The intent was for them to come in line and have consistent enforcement. I believe out of, not factually stating this, but I think in those 4 counties, that probably provides for 70% of the fumigations that take place in the state of California. And those revenues raised does raise a substantial amount of fees. And then for particularly San Diego County, just to always turn around and cite the company is very frustrating. So I don't know if anybody else has any other comments, or maybe the PCOC would weigh in on that. But I would like this board to recognize the displeasure of of what San Diego's been doing. They're not following the guidelines and the protocol that was originally set up in the intent of that law. Thank you.
Any other board members care to comment at this point? It looks like Mr. Reardon from PCOC has a comment.
Mr. Chairman, board members, yeah, I just want to follow up on what Board Member Good said.
Could you identify yourself?
I'm sorry. My name's Chris Reardon. I represent the Pest Control Operators of California. I just wanted to concur with Member Good on this issue. We're aware of what's going on in San Diego, and we are in the process of addressing that as well. There should be consistency in this program. That's why I was there. I view this as having dealt with this from a different perspective previously, but number one, this helps the commissioners, and it helps ensure that we don't have bad actors in our industry. So I wanted to also thank the board for, once again, ensuring that we can continue this sunset bill. It's very important to our industry, not only to our industry, but I think the commissioner community in the state as well. So, but we're going to have to work on San Diego because, as Mr. Good said, they are a significant participant in this program, and we have to make sure that we're finding consistency in the other counties, that we see it there as well.
Thank you. Would anybody else from the public care to comment on this item? Could you step forward to the microphone, please, and identify yourself?
Todd Vadine, Terminix. I'd like to echo both the PCOC and Curtis Good's point about San Diego. Terminix, in terms of notices of intent submitted in San Diego County, is among the top 5 companies. And I do have concern when citations are issued to the company and not to the licensee. The licensee can walk away and go to another company, and there's really nothing following them or affecting them, and they're actually the one that, as Curtis said, personal protective equipment, maybe food or medicine bagging, issues that are directly under the control and responsibility of the licensee really should be directed to the licensee in terms of punitive actions or fines. So I just wanted to state that San Diego is taking a lot of money in terms of fees from us as well as the other operators, but not necessarily going within the guidelines of the Fumigation Enforcement Program standards. Thank you.
Anybody else care to comment? Anything else from the board? Curtis.
I think if it does pass the legislature, I would respectfully request that this board send a letter to San Diego County with those thoughts and process. Maybe legal can weigh in on that.
Are you looking for the board to actually send the letter, or only if it passes? Because I mean, you can set it up that if should it pass, then the board would send this letter. Unless I don't know if the timeline, can they wait till the next meeting, till the July meeting?
Well, and I just kind of wanted to intervene. Curtis, would you think it would be best if the letter came from the Fumigation Enforcement Committee? And not
Maybe that might be a good place to start, and just let it be
so.
recognized that our records, it was part of our dialogue today, and share that with them.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay, we don't have need to take any action. Is that correct, right? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on. We're going to move on to item number 11, which is considering possible amendments to Business and Professions Code, Section 8567, regarding notification of disassociation. So, Susan?
Okay, so 8567 is the section, the controlling section, and the language is in your board packages. That section is in regards to when a licensee disassociates from one company and attempting to keep the records accurate with the Sexual Pest Control Board on where that licensee is currently employed. This is a proposal that stemmed from the Act Review Committee. The Act Review Committee started this, and they actually attempted to change a regulation, but then it was identified that it was in conflict with the statute, so we went back and worked on the statute, and that's the statute. So this language would allow the pest control companies to notify the board when a licensee disassociates and leaves that company. Therefore, our records would end up more accurate. It does not allow the company to change the actual address of record for a licensee. Only the licensee has that right, but it would allow the companies the ability to change and disassociate individuals. So, again, with the assistance of Laura Parra, we found an author. I think Dave put out copies this morning of AB 1590 that didn't get in your board packages. So we do have an author now. This is Assemblymember Chen. AB 1590 was amended on March 21st, and our code section 8567 was inserted to make this change. In addition, I've had some communication with staff members at Assemblymember Chen's office. They are agreeable at looking at about 10 other legislative changes that were recommended by the Act Review Committee that I have not yet been able to get into bills at the Capitol. So we just recently, within the last few days, provided that language to staffers at Assemblymember Chen's office. So they are looking at that language. We hope to get this bill amended in committee and get some of the other pieces thrown in. Of course, you won't be seeing that until the July board meeting, but you've already recommended that I move forward with all the recommendations from the Act Review Committee and get authors. So I'm just giving you a heads up that we may be able to get some more language in this bill. And that bill is going to be heard on April 18th is the next scheduled hearing for AB 1590.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Curtis?
Okay, we're back to the 8567, correct?
Yes.
Specifically? Don't want to get out of line here.
That's,
Yeah.
yes.
Way overdue.
8567. I'm sorry. I totally took that out of context.
What?
Let me go back and correct this. So AB 1590 is our section in regards to 8621 and changing our timeline for when we can take disciplinary action with the Attorney General's office. 8567 that I was discussing, I don't have a bill number yet. Well, I believe I have a bill number. I just got a text from Laura last night that it looks like Senate Bill 800 is going to be amended, and this language for 8567 is going to be added to SB 800. So keep a lookout for SB 800, but it still applies. I don't need a motion to go forward with that legislative amendment because you've already given me that authority at prior board meetings. Okay. Now, if you'd like, I'll speak correctly about AB 1590.
Well, let's just stick with this first. So, Curtis,
Okay.
did you had a question or comment?
No, comment, just thank you, way overdue, and I'm sure the industry will extremely support this.
And I'm sorry for the confusion, because it's not in your board packages. I don't have a bill yet. I have my notes that it's supposed to be in SB 800, so I'm sure we'll get there.
We'll accept your apologies.
Okay.
So,
On camera.
But thank you for the clarification. I do have a question, and so this doesn't relieve the licensee, the individual licensee of their obligation, right? They would still.
It does not.
So they would still be in violation. It's just really to keep our records up to date, which I see that as an advantage. So is there,
The individual licensee is, they're still on the hook for this, for not doing it themselves. And if they
Okay.
don't notify the board within the time frame, then as Robert has indicated, then we can still take action against the individual licensee, licensing action or cite and fine or other measures.
okay, that's all I need to know. Anything else from the board? Anything from the public on this item?
Again, Todd Vadine with Terminix. Excuse me, my only question would be, is there any penalty or sanction if the registered company fails to notify the board of a licensee that disassociates? It says may, but what happens if they don't?
Well, may is that
Just
the
asking
meaning
the
of that
question.
word, and council can correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly. So, but may is permissive; it's not a requirement.
Right, yeah, it doesn't appear to be a requirement that they do so, and since no penalty is prescribed, the courts will not impose a penalty unless there is one that's specifically stated.
Yeah. Chris Reardon again, PCLC. We fully support, agree with Mr. Good. This is long overdue, and we'll work. It looks like the author is going to be Jerry Hill, Senator Hill, and look forward to working with Senator Hill on this bill.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Great.
Chris.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that anybody else? All right, that concludes that item. So moving on to
Now we'll
item
move on
number
to
12,
AB 1590. So, AB 1590 is in your board packages. As I previously indicated, it was amended on February 17th. The language that's in this bill now is 8621. Now, this is a staff recommendation. This was not a recommendation that came from the Act Review Committee. This is a staff recommendation that we came to the board members and said, having this timeline of 12 months to get an accusation to the Attorney General's office, when the Attorney General's office wants that accusation 3 to 4 months ahead of our statute of limitations, so now we really only have 8 months. So we came to you asking if we could change that 12-month limitation and extend it out to 18 months. The board members were agreeable. In fact, this is actually something, being as Robert and I have been talking about sunset a lot already. This actually was brought up in 2013 at our sunset review hearings at that time as well, that we were looking to possibly extend this from 12 to 18 months, and that would make us in line with Contractor State License Board as well. So this was approved by the board members in the past. I was told to go find a legislator. We were successful, so this bill was amended. It now has 8621 in there to change the statute of limitations from 12 months to 18 months.
Okay, any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Just if you do think you're going to comment, if you could just sort of scoot up here, and you can take a seat too, so we.
Chris Reardon again, PCLC. Just wanted to concur, talk to your executive officer the other day, just in terms of clarification. Agree the consistency with the rest of Consumer Affairs, and based on my experience, particularly dealing with the AG's office, you're going to need some additional time to work through some of these issues. So fully support the bill.
Okay. Anybody else from the public? Okay, so we'll move on to item number 13. Consideration and possible approval of 15-day notice of modified text with revised proposed language for regulatory amendment of CCR Title 16, 1937.11 and our disciplinary guidelines. So, Susan?
Should I defer this to you? Or should I defer this to Dave, who worked on it extensively with?
And I will in turn defer it to Michael.
Okay, here we go. Pass the buck this way. Here we go. Okay, so where we're at is when I reviewed the changes that the board had approved from the last time, I made comments to staff just to keep it in line, consistent wise with the other boards and bureaus that have disciplinary guidelines. And also, just for some clarity purposes, and I don't know if you have if the board members have any questions specifically for me about those changes, but they are delineated there in terms of what's new since the last time you saw this and approved that last edit. So a number of it is just renumbering changes, some technical and logistical things, but there are some other substantive ones. I don't know if you want me to go through each and every single change, or if you read it and you're comfortable with that, or if you have any other questions about it.
So for clarification, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. So if they're comfortable with this new language, then they'll direct me, staff, to go out and do a 15-day modified text, and then we can get it filed with the Office of Administrative Law, correct?
Right, that's the next steps. If you agree with this or you don't have any other changes, I'll have a suggested motion for the board so that we can move forward with this.
Any comments from the board or questions? Okay, so you want to...
Right, my recommendation for a motion would be to approve the proposed modified text for a 15-day public comment period and delegate to the executive officer the authority to adopt the proposed regulatory changes as modified if there are no adverse comments received during the public comment period, and also delegate to the executive officer the authority to make any technical or non-substantive changes that may be required in completing the rulemaking file.
Okay, that's exactly what I was hoping you would say.
So we don't run into any problems. That's
So, all right, do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
All right, moved by, okay, and do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Darren seconded.
No. Give Darren. He's a little quicker, louder.
I have a Curtis if you really want it.
All right, so, all right, moving on to more substantive issues. Do we have any comments on this motion from the board? How about from the public? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to basically direct staff to initiate this.
Yes, and to finish the rulemaking process.
And so I'll go ahead to vote. All those, roll call.
Roll call.
Okay,
Dave Tomato,
yes.
Darren Van Steenwyck,
Yes.
Rhonda Brand,
Yes.
Naresh Jagal,
Yes.
Mike Duran,
Yes.
Curtis Good,
Yes.
and Servando Cornelius. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that passes unanimously, and we will now move on to item, my Roman numerals are going off, 14. So, and yet a consideration, possible approval of 15-day notice of modified text with revised proposed language for regulatory amendment of Title 16, California Code of Regulations, sections 1993.2, 1993.3, and 1993.4. So, Susan?
On this one, there was an additional minor change this week, late last week. So Dave emailed this to all of you and also provided a new copy today at the board meeting. And I will defer to Michael.
So those changes that Susan is referring to pertain only to 1993.2 about the termite bait station. The only differences in that one were for subsection B, for some of the terminology to keep it consistent and not refer to the termite baiting system, but we want to keep it consistent and refer to it as a bait station. So those are the minor ones that Dave sent out. And then for 1993.4, that one is the one that I worked with Dave to restructure it just to have clarity in terms of making sure it's understandable not only to the public but also to the Office of Administrative Law. What exactly is the board talking about when we say a termite monitoring device, so that it's clear. Those are the sub-elements of a termite monitoring device that we've listed as well there. So those are some of the changes that I've suggested to staff since the last time this came before the board for approval. So if you have any comments or edits or suggestions at this point.
Okay, anything from the board? Curtis.
Under the 1993.4, the final sentence there, that you have a right to choose any registered company licensed to perform these services. I'm just going to speak personally, I find that insulting. But that's probably government at its work.
Well, that kind of language is also seen in other places, yeah. So it's we're not trying to single out this profession with that phrase.
Equal opportunity insults, so.
So I also have a suggested motion similar to the last one, if you want me to read it again, so we can have it on the record. If there's no more comments from the board members.
Okay, and, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it's to approve the proposed modified text for a 15-day public comment period and delegate to the executive officer the authority to adopt the proposed regulatory changes as modified if there are no adverse comments received during the public comment period, and also delegate to the executive officer the authority to make any technical or non-substantive changes that may be required in completing the rulemaking file.
Do I have a motion to that effect? Well, yeah,
I'll make a motion.
okay, it's got a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, do I have a second?
So moved.
Mike, you seconding it? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Mr. Gaither. This time, please identify yourself for the record.
Billy Gaither, BG Inspections and Pest Control Operator, Branch 1, 2, and 3. My suggestion is you might look at 1993.2, line B, where it says, prior to installation of any termite baiting system, a full or limited inspection. Would it not make sense to stay, instead of full, a complete inspection? Because there is no definition of full inspection, I don't believe, in the regs. There is one for complete, yes, but not for full.
All right, just hang out there for a second. So, does anybody have any comment on that in particular, council?
Billy, you probably raised a good point, but that's what was in text already.
Okay,
So
well, if you're
that's-
changing
that's-
text, though,
yeah.
now's the opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if I could just clarify, are you, for the commenter, are you saying that in our laws, we define what a complete inspection is?
Yes, you do.
Do you have a reference for that? My apologies, because I'm new to this
It
board.
would be 1993, it defines complete inspections, supplemental reports, limited inspections, and I think one other type of inspection, but there's no definition for a full inspection.
Robert, which section, you know? Which section?
Well, 1993 defines the reports, but 8516 in the context of control service agreements identifies full or limited inspection. That's in statute.
Okay, all right. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you. I was referring back to 1993. Okay.
All right, so should we take it on faith that Robert's correct on that?
I saw it.
Okay.
Yeah, when you said it.
As long as you have a reference that defines the full, I mean, you should be all right. I was looking at it. From
All right,
another
so
point.
we'll leave it as is. Thank you very much, Robert. I'm impressed that you have that. So it's like, wow. Well, I didn't expect that you would have a wild guess. I was like, wow, you got that pretty good. So, all right. So we will, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments from the public? All right, so if we could have a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Dave Tamayo.
Yes.
Darren Van Steenwick.
Yes.
Rhonda Brand. Naresh Tegal.
Yes.
Mike Duran. Curtis Good.
Yes.
And Servando Ornelas.
All right, so that motion passes unanimously, and we'll move on to item number 15, our board calendar.
So, in your board packages, Dave has provided you with the upcoming dates that are already established. So we have, we have July 2017, July 11th and 12th. We're looking at Ontario. We had two hotels that were offering bids to us for Ontario, so it looks like we will be in Ontario. I can't tell you for sure yet if we're going to need Tuesday, the 11th, reinstatements. Do you know yet, Melissa?
I have three
Potentials?
because
Oh.
they were set for July when we were going to be, or January.
When we were going to be in Southern California, and we had to move it to up here.
Yes. Plus, I've had
Okay.
other people
Inquire.
inquire.
Okay.
So
Then we definitely will have a 2-day meeting in July on Tuesday the 11th and Wednesday the 12th then. Typically, if we have only one reinstatement, then we'll try and do what we did to do today and group it all together. But if we have two or more, then it usually makes more sense to break it up and do it in the afternoon the day before. So we have that one established. Then we have October of 2017 in Sacramento. So October 10th and 11th. Again, Tuesday, Wednesday. If you recall, we moved them to Tuesday, Wednesdays because that was kind of the feedback that Christina was getting from hotels, that if we had the board meetings earlier in the week, they might be a little more agreeable to give us the state rate for rooms. So we've got October 10th and 11th in Sacramento. Then we've got January of 18. You were already scheduled for January 9th and 10th. We've identified LA, but we're looking someplace in Southern California for that meeting. So then we need you folks to agree to a date in October of 2018, and that calendar is in your board packages. Preferably, you would be meeting before April 20th, because that would be our 100th day from our last board meeting.
Hang on one second. All right, do you want to say that?
My recommendation is on that April date that we coincide that with the legislative days of PCOC, if we can do that again.
And is that the first week in April? Curtis, or do you know yet?
Yeah.
You don't have a date yet? Okay. Dave, if you like, then we could leave it open at this point, and then I'll wait to get information from Mr. Reardon and bring it back to you and share it with you at the July meeting.
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes sense to try and accommodate that. But we're talking. So, what are the dates that are?
Typically, it'd be April. It'd be that Wednesday, Thursday, so a 4th or 5th or 11th and 12th. It'd typically be a Wednesday, Thursday if we had additional hearings, or the Thursday.
Considering that we're in Sacramento, and we usually can get state rate in Sacramento, if you want to do the meeting in April of 18, and you want to plan it for Wednesday, Thursday, not Tuesday, Wednesday, because it would conflict with PCOC.
Correct.
Then yeah, we can plan for Wednesday, Thursday in Sacramento in 2018.
Well, I know that I'll have a conflict, but I'll deal with that. I would typically have a conflict on that Thursday morning, but this board won out this time, so and I suspect the next time it will as well. So, all right. So yeah, we'll leave that open for now to accommodate. So, I guess we're set on our board calendar for now. And let me get reorganized. reoriented to my agenda here. So, so our next item is discussion and possible position on Assembly Bill 1687 to expand prohibition on specified anticoagulant pesticides. So,
Darren, do you want to speak to that, or Curtis, do you want to?
Yeah, if I can speak to that. So at this point, 1687, Bloom's bill has been parked officially. It was supposed to be, it originally was supposed to be heard in the ESTM committee yesterday or Tuesday, and it has been taken off of that and made a 2-year bill. And so so at this point in time, we will be revisiting this issue again in in 2018. And so if we wanted to continue conversation about it now, then as the bill for the bill as stands, or at least on the kind of the premise behind the bill, then we can do that. But at this point, the bill is not planning on being heard in the 2017 session.
Do you have a preference as to whether we have a discussion now?
I do, actually. I would like to discuss it. I think that this is a bill that we can discuss now or later, and so I think now is as good a time as any. And one reason is because this bill is there's not that much different between 2596, which was introduced and then pulled last year, and so between that bill and this bill, for the most part, they are relatively similar.
Okay. And it is on our agenda. So, but I do have a question of council, and I wanted to find out if you've thought about whether this is actually within the scope of what our board does, of commenting on this particular bill. Or is that sort of do you think we have enough discretion as a board to consider this?
I mean, it kind of involves the industry, so it doesn't necessarily have to affect all the laws or regulations of the board. So you're perfectly, it's within your discretion to make comments and to offer any kind of a position that you want on the bill, because it's not something that wouldn't touch this industry. So that's what I'm saying. It's pretty broad, but it's still up to the board whether or not you would want to, because technically you could comment on bills that have nothing to do with the industry. It's just would be looking at a perception image of whether that's appropriate. So that's why the board still has that broad discretion to make comments and positions on any bills they wish to.
All right. So then I think we'll just accept that opinion, and so let Darren, if you want to go ahead and offer your comments on this and open it up to the rest of the board.
My professional opinion is this bill is terrible. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I just did. This bill has tremendous impact, or has tremendous potential to have negative impact on consumer protection from an industry standpoint. To do a blanket removal of a tool from the industry is one that that is the reaction to the reaction to the initial problem that has been presented is totally disproportional, and that this bill could and would severely hamstring the industry's ability to perform the services as prescribed by by the regulations, specifically following integrated pest management in Section 1984 and defined in the Act. This bill is in direct conflict with that, and so I believe that that if this board were to take a stance on this bill, that it should oppose it.
Anybody else from the board?
Yes, I'd like to comment in that recognizing that our licensees and individuals and our companies that are out there, people just kind of look at it as whether pest control and their termite companies and fumigation companies. Well, it's quite a bit more than that. The industry is really charged with health and safety issues, public safety and health. And this particular class of anticoagulants or rodenticides, really, I think if you were to remove that, I would equate that very much going to asking doctors to ban all antibiotics. I mean, what would happen to public health and safety then if you were to remove something like that? I think the ramifications would be quite extensive, and I'm glad that council did allow us to weigh in and have an opinion here, because I think our world would change much differently if these were taken out of. That's a huge tool in our toolboxes, and I think public safety would be very much jeopardized. Thank you.
Anybody else on the board? Mike?
Being in the industry for the past 40 years, I think it would be disastrous to remove any anticoagulants from the field. It's a tool that we use daily, and it's really doing its job up there. And I do recommend that the board take a stance on it. Maybe if not at this meeting, but in the next future meetings, we take a stance and completely oppose this bill. Thank you.
Naresh?
Yeah, I have a suggestion here is that word oppose and or agree, and I think I mentioned earlier also, we need to work with the author and try to distinguish, have a much more clarity what the Structural Pest Control Board used this tool for compared to the many others, those who use the anticoagulants. And my personal experience coming to California in last 14, 15 years, it's not the structural pest control industry that had issue with it, environmental impacts. It was something different. Non-agricultural use of the rodenticides was of the concern. The secondary kill, what you call it, that's the main alarming thing, and it is happening. It's not, no doubt, we cannot deny that, but not from that applications which structural pest control industry do. So I think we need to somehow work with the author or whoever is, wherever it is now, to craft that language, the difference. And I can encourage PCOC to take that lead and somehow educate them first. Give that clear-cut distinction, where it is used, how it is used, containerized use, and it can be retrieved. And in many cases, which I have seen in non-agriculture environment, it is a strictly blanket application of the rodenticide. So I think the perceived risk versus the real risks are in two different geographical areas altogether. So that's what needs to be addressed, rather than just simply saying oppose. Because sometimes when you take this word oppose out there, it's not taken, it's just like you become kind of like in a fighting with somebody there. That's my suggestion.
Anything else on the board? I'd like to echo what Naresh had to say, is that I think that there's out and out opposition, but I think we might serve the public better by having a little bit more refined comment on this bill, because I do think that there needs to be recognition of that there's sort of a recognition that if it's continued to be kept in the hands of our industry, structural pest control industry, that can be done very responsibly. And I think that would be something that we want to make clear, that under those conditions, that this can be, the concerns about environmental impacts can be addressed through responsible use by our licensees. So, Jim, you look like you had something to say. Is that why you moved up here? Would you care to move up to the mic? So, yeah, I'm opening it up to the public. If anybody else thinks that they want to comment, if you could just move up closer to the mic, so quicker transition.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Steed. I'm with Neighborly Pest Management, and I'm also on the Executive Committee for Pest Control Operators of California, and currently serve as the chair of our Legislative Committee. This is indeed a large and complex issue, and I think you have identified very quickly and appropriately that the elimination of second-generation anticoagulants is a terrible idea. And yet the difficulties with secondary kill on wildlife remain as an issue that needs to be addressed. And I think I would recommend to the board to speak strongly against the strategy of the ban, and at the same time also speak strongly in a letter or a position for bringing together the stakeholders that are stewards of these rodenticides to look at some strategies that are possibly going to be effective in addressing the wildlife issues. I think the energy that is coming from the sponsors who, by the way, we reached out to and we met with. PCOC met directly on January 20th of this year with Raptors Are the Solution and Poison Free Malibu, and I think 2 other groups in an effort to find common ground. We requested the meeting ourselves. We drove down to Berkeley and met with them for 2 hours. And we did identify areas of some common ground where we might be able to begin to come together. And I think if the board was able to offer a very strong position on the ban as a very bad idea, and at the same time offer very strong encouragement for coming together on other strategies, that could be really helpful long term.
Anybody else from the public care to weigh in on this? Chris? Sure. Okay. So what I would suggest is that we ask staff to work with maybe one or two of the board members to come up with language that sort of reflects what Jim suggested, because I do like that sort of direction, and to have a position that we can consider for our next meeting. I don't want to try and hash out wording right now, but I do get the sense that the board would like is in support of what what some of us have said and what Jim actually articulated pretty well. So is that?
I'll more than happy to help on that. I am very much in support of what Jim said, as well as there's a lot of factors to this. We haven't even talked about integrating DPR into this, which is one of the specific regulatory entities that would have that this would impact directly. And so I'm more than happy to help on crafting that letter.
I also want to make another comment here. There are local jurisdictions out there, those who are already crafting their own languages, boards out there, those who are already doing it, and we are troubled by that also. And especially with the vertebrate control out in the field for ground squirrels and the pocket gophers and all those kind of things, much larger than what your industry handles. Somehow, if we are going out for an outreach, I call it, this is sort of, a board can do an outreach to these groups, those who are strongly opposed to use of anticoagulants, is that somehow separate that and then bring a kind of like a language where we say that this is the type of methods we use to execute these kind of anticoagulants. And that may be more convincing. Otherwise, and at the same time, if we have to work with the author here, we should also look into something that local jurisdictions should not take charge of it. They can. They have the ability to do that, and in my county it is. So I think that should also be addressed somehow in the language. Thank you.
Well, I didn't want to be directing staff to be conducting outreach to different stakeholders. I mean, that wasn't my intent. I mean, I understand, you know, it's important for for industry to do that. I think it's fine for us to take a position, but I don't think it's, to me, I don't think that we should be establishing some sort of ongoing dialogue with the different stakeholders. I don't think that that's an appropriate. Maybe I misunderstood what you were getting at.
What I meant here is that language which we craft, there should be very clear cut that when it is going out, that we are acknowledging something, at the same time we are addressing some of the issues. We are taking a stand based on the knowledge and the facts out there, and we're trying to differentiate ourselves from the remaining use of the anticoagulants. So that's called the outreach. The language which is going out from the board is not that we're taking a stand, yes or no. We are saying this is what we mean to it. And so that's where the outreach word comes from. It's not that you're going out there to a community meeting or to a agency meeting out there. So that's what I meant.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood your intent there. So, all right. So Darren has volunteered to do that. And is maybe if there's maybe one other board member who wanted to be on the loop with that, is there? That's okay. All right. All right. So we've got that, and we'll be looking for something to approve to move forward on in July. It seems like the timing's fine since it's a 2-year bill. So.
Okay. So you want something on the agenda for the July board meeting, and by then, Darren and Curtis will have worked with staff to prepare a document for addressing to the author? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Future agenda items. So we have that. What we just spoke about is there any feeling from the board on other additional items that you would like to see on future agendas?
Yes, Mr. President. Met a gentleman from the Veterans Advocacy Group of America. He made a presentation to PCOC. This gentleman has an outreach program and training that he's providing to veterans, specifically to pest control. And I don't know exactly, I haven't seen his site, but apparently he has a website and everything else. And I apologize, I just met him yesterday. But I did talk to him. He would be very excited to make a presentation to this board. They are from the Southern California area. Possibly we can invite him, extend an invitation for him to attend our July meeting in Ontario, and I'd be happy to make that contact with him and extend an invitation to him if everybody be so inclined to maybe let him make a 10 or 15-minute presentation to us.
Everybody cool with that? All right. And anything else from the board as far as future agenda items? Anything from the public? All right. That concludes our business, and we are now adjourned. Thank you very much.